Welcome to the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. This is Doctora Yvette Martinez-Vu, and I will be serving as your femtor, providing you with tips and tricks and everything else you need to know to get into graduate school. For the past 10 years, I've been helping undergraduate students get into top graduate programs in their field, and I'm really excited to share this information with you too. Hi, everyone. Today I have a podcast episode on using anger to fuel your work. All right, so I like to preface my episodes usually with some background info or telling you a little bit about kind of what brought me to that topic. And so today's topic, there are a number of things that came up for me this week that I thought, well, if it's coming up for me, if it's coming up for my family, my friends, my colleagues, my students, then, it's something I should talk about on the podcast. And so something that has come up, recently with checking in on folks is that I've noticed that a lot of people are struggling, and that more specifically, a lot of people I've checked in with have been dealing with feelings of anger. What kind of anger? What are they angry at? Where's that coming from? So when it comes to my friends and for myself, I had one friend who was angry at something that happened for them at work. I had another friend who was kind of angry and feeling like they were lashing out because of parent overwhelm. For me, it's been similar, just feeling overwhelmed at the lack of childcare, and sometimes it manifesting in anger. And then when I think about kind of the root behind kind of the feeling of anger is kind of a vehicle through which kind of your body's communicating something to you. So, when checking in with folks and realizing a lot of us are struggling, it's at the root of it, there's a lot of injustices. We're struggling because of lack of support for parents, struggling because maybe you're a grad student and you're making below minimum wage on your grad student stipend, or you're struggling because you're not getting the accommodations that you need, or you're struggling because you're dealing with so many microaggressions, macroaggressions from people. And all of that, understandably so, makes you angry. It reminds me a lot of kind of the work of Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde has, a really famous essay that she gave, or speech that she gave at the National Women's Studies Association on the uses of anger. It was in 1981 that she gave that speech. And that was a direct response to racism in the feminist movement. So this is not a new feeling, not a new kind of thought of like using your anger as a means to kind of fuel your work and fuel change. But I thought that it would be useful to remind you or to introduce it to you if you hadn't been introduced to the idea that you can use your anger productively and to validate those emotions. Not every day you're going to be doing work from a place of joy. Not every day is going to be easy and seamless, and you're going to be able to get everything done on your to-do list or make it to every single thing that's on your calendar. That's just not reasonable. So, I wanted to talk about anger today to remind you that you can use anger as a tool. So you can use anger as a tool to identify a problem. What's going on for you right now that's making you angry? You can use it as a tool to identify injustice. What is happening to you or to your loved ones or in your surroundings that is unjust and making you angry? And to identify the different isms. So maybe you're angry at racism, at sexism, at classism, at ableism, and the list goes on and on and on of the different ways that you or your loved ones might be discriminated against or treated unfairly. And then think about that as like, how can you then use that as motivation to get work done, to promote change in some way, shape, or form, even if it's in a small way. And sometimes we're so angry that you can't even think about doing something productive because you're so in that feeling. And so if that is happening to you, think about strategies of things that you can do to kind of get it out. Is there a listening partner that you can identify, someone you can go to who's a safe person to you to kind of vent and let it out? Maybe that might be not a friend, maybe that might be a therapist. Or can you journal? Or can you give yourself some space? Maybe you need to remove yourself from whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe if you're home, you could go on a walk, or you could take a shower, or you could take a short 20-minute nap, something to help you kind of calm down. And then when you get back and you feel like you're a little more calm, you can be in that space where you can use it as a motivator. I think that a lot of us have had experiences where something has happened to us that made us angry, and then that fueled us to do something about it. So when I think about an example, I think about for myself growing up in an LAUSD school that was under-resourced, and where I had a lot of teachers who frankly did not believe in us. I distinctly remember having a high school science teacher. This is probably one of the reasons I struggled and didn't like science. This science teacher, instead of teaching us, she would spend that time putting us down. She would tell us that in 5 to 10 years, we were all either going to be pregnant, incarcerated, or dead. That was what she thought about us. And so for me, I felt like, oh, I'm going to prove this person wrong. Not only am I going to not do all the things that she said, but I'm going to kind of go to college and get a career and et cetera, et cetera. But that was initially in high school, one of the fuels, one of the things that, motivated me to prove her wrong was to go to college and get a formal education. But I know that happens to other folks too, and it continues to happen. I remember having a student who was a transfer student, and one of the first professors that he had told him that there was no way he could ever get into a PhD program, that it was impossible, that it wasn't going to happen. Why waste his time? And I remember him coming to my office so angry and so upset. And me reminding him, like, that's just one person's opinion. That means nothing. That's like probably them. It's probably a personal thing on them. They might be projecting things onto you, their own thoughts. And it has nothing to do with you. And, if you want to go to grad school, you can certainly do it. You have my support. And guess what? Not only did he go to grad school, he actually got into a PhD program while he applied his senior year. So, I mean, what he accomplished from going to being a transfer student and having that happen right away his first quarter, to then a year later applying to PhD programs, getting into programs, getting fully funded, moving out of state, and now doing very well. That's huge. But that was one of the fuels. That was one of the motivators, was proving that person wrong. And I think the other thing that helps is sometimes we feel angry, and it can be used as a means to build community. Maybe, I remember when I was in grad school, starting the Mothers of Color in Academia group. I was one of the founding members. And when we started that group, we started it, good portion of it was out of anger. I was angry that I had to take the bus to campus, lug around my pump parts and have to pump milk, and not have a place to leave my things, having to carry it everywhere, and not having time in between work and classes and all that to pump milk for my baby, and not being able to find a place on campus to buy a milk bag if I ran out. Just feeling like the infrastructure of the university was not set up to support me, or realizing how inaccessible the campus was, bringing a stroller and not being able to get around easily, or being pregnant, third trimester, I can hardly walk, and realizing, oh my gosh, there's so many hills, there's so many stairs, like I can't get from point A to point B. That was fuel to my fire, to my anger of like, we need to do something about it. We need to get up and take action and protest and insist that the university do something to better support parenting students. And so we used anger as a means to build community. So this is not going to be a long episode, but what I really want you to get at when it comes to anger is, if you're feeling angry, if you're struggling today, you're not alone. Give yourself some time and space, do something, to help yourself out, whether that's journaling, talking to a friend, taking a shower, a nap, and a walk. And then how can you use it to get to work? How can you use your anger productively? And I think that's the message for today. I was actually feeling pretty angry this morning too, and I'm starting to calm down a little bit more, but just want to remind you all that it's completely understandable. Like, we are human and we have all types of emotions. And I might be, a lot of the times you hear me and I might be giggling on the podcast, or seem like I'm in a good mood. And that's because I wait until the afternoons to do my recordings, because in the mornings I feel sick, or, I want to be able to give my best self. But in actuality, in reflecting on that, I'm like, actually, I should share more of my full self, because the more I can be my full self, probably more people will be able to relate. So I was feeling angry this morning. Some of my friends were feeling angry this morning, checking in on other people. A lot of us are struggling. And if that's the case, like, use it as your fuel, to use it as a means to get from point A to point B, find support, build community, and you'll get through it. All right. Thank you all for listening. I will talk to you all next time.
Thanks so much for joining me in the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please rate this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you tune in. You can also support the podcast by donating to my Patreon page, Anchor page, or Venmo account, which is at Grad School Femtoring. If you have questions or episode topics, you can contact me by sending me a DM on Instagram, sending me an email to gradschoolfemtoring@gmail.com, sending me a voice message on Anchor, or sending me a message via my personal website at YvetteMartinezvu.com. Until next time.